Hey, welcome New Life to the online gathering. My name is David Day, and I'm so excited to be with you. It's 2023, and you're here, and I'm here, and we're going to do this thing. My prayer for you is that today, as we walk through the day, you'd grow in your imagination and your goal and your vision for what God might have in this year. Because let's be honest, every year brings something unexpected. 2022 for me and my family, we found out that we are having a new baby. Come on, we're so excited, and we didn't know, like, boy, girl, what's this thing gonna be? We go to the doctor, we find out we're having a boy. So we come home and we get all our friends together and a couple hundred other people because it was a youth night and I could do whatever I want. And so I bring all the teenagers and all my friends in. My friends are not just the teenagers, by the way. To clarify, I have other friends, but the teenagers were there too. And we announce on stage, we're having a boy, and blue goes all over the place. A couple weeks later, my wife and I go in for the anatomy scan. And the nurse says, you guys know what you're having, right? And we were like, yeah, we're so excited, we're having a boy. And she gave me one of those looks like, and she goes back to her computer and she looks at us, she goes, you sure? And we're like, yeah, we're having a boy. She goes back, she goes, you're having a girl. Can I tell you, my mind blew. We still have not met this child, but all I know is she's dramatic already. Unexpected things happen every year. We came back from a vacation, we locked our cats out of the cat litter box for a week. Our mattress became the bathroom. Surprise, unexpected. We went on vacations, our friends got married, our friends got sick, our family got in fights, our family fixed it. There's so many things that happen in a year. And my hope is that as 2023 comes, the unexpected would just be moments where you could see that God is faithful and true and good in your life. What's cool is we got this right here, the Seattle Supersonics storybook. I think it's themed like that because we have hope that they're coming back. But it's a storybook of what God has done in the life of people in this church. People who were fighting mental illness, people who were in a coma and came out, people who had vision to feed people, people who wanted to meet needs in practical ways, people who felt like their job was the place that God put them. Unexpected moments where God showed up this last year. I'd love for you to grab it, go on, find this. It's on Amazon. It's on our social media. There's tons of places to find it. But look at the stories of what God has done and ask yourself this. What might God do this next year in my life? But maybe you're like me, and honestly, sometimes it feels like God's doing things in everybody else's life, and you just can't seem to figure out where he's at in your life. Or maybe there's times when you hear stories of God moving and changing and interacting, and you're like, am I doing something wrong here? When I read scripture, sometimes I get to the stories of the people that are in the faith, that are huge heroes of the faith, and I see the way God interacts with them, and then I feel like the way God interacts with me, and I'm like, what am I missing? One of my favorite stories is the story of Moses in the burning bush. It's Moses as he walks throughout his mundane, everyday, ordinary shepherding life in the Middle East, and he's walking and he sees a bush that's on fire. And as he gets closer to the bush, he sees that it's burning up, but it's not like engulfed with flames. Like there's fire around it, but it's not burning down. And get it, he would have been used to bushes on fire. He's in the Middle East, in the desert, hot sun, bushes burn up, but there was something different about this one to him. And so he took steps forward. And God was in the bush. And as he began to engage the bush, God engaged with him. And said, Moses, Moses, take off your sandals, for this ground that you're standing on is holy ground. It's almost as if God was saying, Moses, you're in this moment, and I want you to be aware that I'm in this moment with you. What a powerful statement that God is in this moment with you. Rabbis have this tradition of taking the text of the Old Testament and debating it. What would it have been like? What was actually going on? Were there things we didn't see? How would this have actually played out? One conversation and one argument that's happened a lot is the argument of, was this the first time God was in a burning bush? Or had Moses been walking by burning bush after burning bush after burning bush his entire life and never noticed it until this one moment? And had God been trying to say, Moses, I'm with you in this moment over and over and over again, and Moses just missed it? I'd like to contend that in 2023, There will be burning bushes all over your world and all over your life. As you walk into your home, as you go to your place of work, as you're with your friends in all your relationship, that God is there in that moment calling out to you, wanting to do something with you, wanting to move in you and work with you. But we need the tools and the rhythms and the ability to actually see what he's up to. So today, my hope is that we will become people becoming the church. That give our mundane, ordinary, everyday life to Jesus and say, what would you do with it? My hope is that the unexpected in 2023 would be met by a God who's been with you all the way through. That you would have a faith that comes to life this year. Here's just what I know. The only faith that works is the faith that works every single day. So this Sunday thing needs to actually inform our Monday life, our Tuesday living, our Wednesday work, our Thursday relationships, our Friday hopes and dreams. If our faith is a one-day thing, it's nothing to stand on. But if it actually takes root and engages every day of our life, something incredible can happen. Now, here's the hard part. The Bible's full of big, ethereal ideas that we somehow need to grab and force and shove into our life, into our going to work, picking up the kids, taking the minivan from A to B to C to D life, or like mid-size SUV, whatever you're into, it's your thing. Working through our relationships life, trying to have friends as an adult life, whatever it is that you're doing, all these things are trying to merge together. And so today I'd love to suggest a practice, a way of living, a way of reacting and interacting with what God is up to in your life. I want to give you something that I think could make you aware of the new things God wants to do. That could give you an imagination for how God might use you. That could breathe life into a stalled spiritual walk and could give hope to those that are in broken, hard moments. So with your permission, I'd love to mess with your weekdays. Ever heard of like a weekend warrior? Like I want weekday warriors here. Here's what I want to do. I want to reset the rhythm and the value that you have in your day. Or maybe I want to give you some. Here's what I've learned. Many people have rhythms to their workouts. You never skip leg day. I've heard that. They have rhythms to their work. They have rhythms to the things that they do. But do you have a way in which you pursue to find God in the moment that you're in, knowing that he's in it with you? So I want to mess with your weekdays. Here's how I'm going to do it. First is we're going to look at the historical meaning, the themes of the days, the mythological backings and values that were set in place that we've been living in over and over and over again and maybe have never thought about. And second, I want to do what Jesus would do with these type of things. I want to grab it, I want to reclaim it and redeem it. I want to give it something that points us to God. And then third, I want to make it so practical for how you could actually live this out. You ready to go? Let's start with Monday. Monday comes from almost every calendar you have. By the way, when we build calendars, the main ones we have are the Greek, the Roman, and the Norse. And they were all kind of informed by the Babylonian one. And Babylonian calendar was the first one with 7 days. And it had Monday, or Monday is Moon Day. In the Norse, it's Manus Day. And Manus is the Norse god that would ride a chariot and pull the moon across the sky. If you ever felt like you were dragged into a Monday, Manus is dragging you into it. And Moon Day actually comes from a bigger celebration before the 7-day thing of new moons. Almost every belief system has celebrated something to do with the moon because the moon brings newness. Every time there's a new moon, people would think the old moon is gone, there's something new and fresh to come. I can't control what happened, but there's something moving into this next harvest or this next season or this next way of life. And so on Mondays, we join with other people from all places and we celebrate newness, but not just because of Manus or not because it's a new moon, but because Jesus has a way of making all things new. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says this, that anyone who is in Christ is a new creation. The old is gone and the new is come. On Mondays, we remember that when we do old us things, when old you shows up, that's not who you are. And you don't need to live into that. The newness you get to step into is that God has given you new work, new things. It's a reminder that God is still at work in you, that God's giving you vision for new works to do, new identity to step into, a new hope, a new way of being human. As you think about like today, we have New Year's Day, or maybe you're watching this a little later, but this is New Year's season, and resolutions are being made. And honestly, like resolutions, the science and the studies, like they're not gonna last because we give it like a day or a week or a month and then we stop paying attention to it. But a resolution is just this, it's your soul's desire to be new, to step into what God has for you, to step into who you know you can be. On Mondays, we sit down before God and say, God, I know you're doing a new work in me. An old me might have came back last week or last year or last month, but today, new me is here. And the hardest part with this is it's just like sometimes the temporary gets in the way, you know? Like the bills show up or the sickness settles in or the friendship gets kind of stale or I have something that really frustrates me or I have something that distracts me or there's a new TV show to binge. Like I get it, things come in, the temporary overtakes the eternal, but on Monday we remember that the eternal is at work and that God has new things. Isaiah 43:18 says this, behold, I'm doing a new work. In fact, I've already begun, don't you see it? I'll put pathways in the wilderness. I'll put rivers in the dry wastelands. I'm going to give you life again. So Mondays are the day we begin to dream again. We begin to breathe again. We begin to trust that God's going to redeem again, that God's going to use us again, that God has a plan for us. On Mondays, we imagine what God can do, and we start new. Can you imagine 52 days? A year on rhythm of saying, God, I know old me has stepped in, but would the new me that you've created in Christ Jesus, would that step in even more as I move into Tuesday? And by the way, as we move through all these days, these are things we want to invade our entire life, but sometimes before it can invade our entire life, we just need to give it a day. So Tuesday, I don't know about you, I used to think it was like Tuesday, like the second day, it's here, but it's not. Actually, there are some people that would just call it the second day of the week if you go back, but I'm not going to nerd you out there. Tuesday comes from Tears Day. Anglo-Saxons would have said it too. It's the Norse god of war. He's the god of single combat. Come on, isn't that cool? And then the Romans didn't like it, so they're like, I want to use my god of war, and so they made Mars Day. It's named after Mars, the god of war. If you speak Spanish, Marte is Mars Day. It's this day that's really about battle. From the Norse to the Romans, we're going to fight. And honestly, you have been living in a world where Tuesday has been battle all along. And you might not have even realized it. Look at some of these things that have happened on Tuesdays. October 29th, 1929, was a Tuesday. It was Black Tuesday. It's the day the stock market crashed. June 6, 1944 was a Tuesday, the day the Allied forces invaded Normandy. It was D-Day. April 10th, 1962 was a Tuesday, the day that JFK was shot. April 20th, 1999 was the day, it was a Tuesday, and it was the day that Columbine was attacked. September 11th, 2001 was a Tuesday, and it was the day that the terrorists attacked the Twin Towers in New York. Super Tuesday is a day that all politicians go to war and Americans join them at the polls. Tuesday is the day of press releases, and it's a war of print that goes out on the internet and in the newspapers and in magazines. Microsoft sends out their patchwork on the second Tuesday of every month. Tuesdays are the days that traditionally musicians have dropped albums and books have been released. Rhythms of Tuesday our battle. Here's what it is. Monday has come. The dream was there. And Tuesday is when the toil and the struggle and the fight comes. Tuesday is the day that we remember what God has called us to. And when it still feels like we're removed from it, we still remember it and we still keep fighting to see what God has said, I have put in front of you. Tuesday's the day we don't give up. You see, Mondays are fun. Starting things is fun. Even starting a cleanse, which some of you are doing, it's fun. We order the stuff. We get the stuff. We have the blenders. We have the new yoga pants. We have the whatever it is. And the first day, it's fun. There's no headaches. There's no stomach aches. But stuff comes after that, right? It's the toil. Having kids, the concept is fun. Making kids is fun. Dressing up their rooms, getting all the gifts, it's fun. But raising them, waking up with them, making sure they don't become criminals, not as fun. Tuesday is about the toil. It's about the day we step into the identity and the destiny that God has for us. It's the day we remember that God doesn't promise it's going to be easy. He just promises that he's going to be with us. Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's workmanship or masterpiece, created anew Monday for the good work that God planned for us to do long ago." We got to remember, God gave us work to do. He gives us the vision on Monday, and we step into it on Tuesday. We fight for it, and we never, ever give up. We keep going. We keep pursuing what God has for us. And that word, good work, is actually the word aragon, and it means enterprise. It literally means that God has put you in your workplace. He's in that moment that you're in with you. And there's significance there. He's put you in your home with you. And there's significance there. Whatever work you have to do, God is in it. And he's fighting for you in it. And here's what I know. Many of you, you're doing really hard things. You're leading coworkers, you're leading employees, you're leading companies, you're leading your family, you're leading a marriage, you're fighting for something that feels like it might be dying. You're fighting for the thing that was new once, but there's toil to it now. And you need to remember that God will never leave you or forsake you in it. I think of the moment Moses, burning bush Moses, gets to the end of his life. He's with the Israelites looking into the promised land, and Joshua is there. And he looks at Joshua as he's looking at his new thing, about to go into his battle. And he says, "Don't be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord himself will personally go ahead of you. He will neither fail you or abandon you." And on Tuesday, would you remember that? No matter how hard the fight gets, God will never fail you or abandon you. Monday, newness. Tuesday, battle. Wednesday is a fun day. You know what Wednesday is? Hump day! Mike. You guys, if you haven't seen the Geico commercial, go watch it. It's fun. Wednesday is traditionally this day that we just kind of go, when will this end? How do I get through this to get to Thursday to Friday for the weekend? How do I weather whatever storm comes so I don't have to go back to Monday or Tuesday for a while? I want to get away from this. But Wednesday historically is a day that's dedicated to Odin in the Norse mythology, the god of all this stuff. He's the big god. He's the god whose home is in Valhalla. He is the one that you're trying to impress. He's the god of wisdom, and he also has this volatility to him. And then again, the Greeks hijacked it, and they didn't like Odin, so they went with Mercury. And Mercury is the god of the wind and movement. He's the mover of souls. And there's something to Mercury where Mercury was known as the god with the magic touch, where if you were dead and you were touched by Mercury, you would come to life. But if you were alive and you were touched by Mercury, you would die. Odin and Mercury, they have this wisdom and volatility, life and death. You never know what you're going to get. There's a duality within them, and you don't quite know. So going to the gods is a gamble. And Wednesday isn't a day we go to a God that's a gamble. It's a day we would go to a God that's good. And you think about the creation of these gods. You obviously are going to create gods that kind of look and act and are like you. And the duality you find in the gods is the duality you find in yourself. Ever felt like there's duality in you? Like the things that you don't want to do, you do. And the things you do want to do, you don't do. Ever felt like you didn't want to go back to that thing or act that way or do that thing, but you keep being that person and you're like, that's not who I am. I've heard fights that is their original sin or original goodness. We're made in the image of God, but babies know how to be selfish right away. What is it? It's duality. And Wednesday's the day that says, I'm not going to give into the duality of me and just say I'm a gamble. I'm actually going to believe that God is doing a work in me to make me new. And I want wisdom to win. Wednesday is the day we fight for wisdom. Wednesday is the day we say, God, what is it that you're changing and shaping in me? What is there in front of me that I have to decide that I need your thoughts and your way in? James 1, 5-6 says this. Sorry. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking, But when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. See that? He's like, God's not dualistic. You're dualistic. Make sure you go with one way. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. Romans 12, 1 through 2 in the Message says, so here's what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your eating, sleeping, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you just fit in without even thinking about it. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what he wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings out the best of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. Wednesday is about finding that well-formed maturity. Wednesday, we put ourselves on the altar. We say, search me, God, and know me. Find out if there's anything offensive or anxious or wrong in me, and would you change me? Wednesday is the day where we say, God, in light of my past experiences, my current circumstances, my future hopes and dreams, what's the right way to move forward? We put our vision and our choices and our future in front of God and say, make me more like you. Monday, newness. Tuesday, battle. Wednesday, wisdom. Thursday is maybe the most agreed upon day in all of Greek mythology. It's Zeus, Jupiter, Thor, Thor's day. Thursday. You see that? Like, you've been living in a day dedicated to Thor for your entire life, and you may have never recognized it. These three gods have something in similar. They're all gods of protection. Thursday is a reminder that no matter if you're Greek, Roman, Babylonian, Norse, American, we're all wondering, is someone watching out for me? Is someone caring about me? Whether it's college tuition or a high school breakup or a job search or a job struggle or a marriage issue or a relation or whatever it is, our whole hope and dream is that, is somebody going to watch out for me or look out for me? Like, you know this if you've ever gone through anything hard. I remember when my wife was pregnant with her second kid, my son, I was so excited. We found out he might have a hole in his heart. And for 2 weeks, we had to sit waiting for the ultrasound to go through to figure out what is going on here. And I just remember for 2 weeks being like, God of protection, wherever you are, would you come down and would you protect our son? And I know that feeling. And it's funny, as Sam grew up, one thing Sam experienced, what everybody experiences, is object permanency problems. Ever had a kid? You like show them the rattle, you hide the rattle, you come back, there's no rattle, like, what just happened? Or you're in the room and you leave the room, and then you come back into the room and they're like, oh my gosh, did you just like reappear? I think sometimes we have object permanency problems with God, where he was there in the protection moment, and then we didn't need him, and then we needed him again, and we forgot how to find him, which is, by the way, why we're doing this. So we don't have object permanency problems. It's also, by the way, why they created days to Thor, Zeus, and Jupiter, because they're like, if we give you attention, maybe you won't forget us. So we create this, like, will you notice me? But years later, man, decades, millennium, century, whatever, we're here now, and no one's worshiping Zeus, Jupiter, or Thor anymore. But we serve a living God who doesn't say, you need to call out to me for me to care about you. I care about you. I want you to figure out that I'm with you in the moment already. I'm here, in the here and in the now. Thursday is a day of surrender to the God of protection. Thursday is a day we actually just go, God, you're God and I'm not. I don't want to forget about you. I don't want to miss you. I don't want to not see what you're doing. God, I want to give up all the times I try to hold on to control because honestly, I wasn't sure if you'd show up. I want to give you the anxiety I've grabbed trying to be God, trying to play God when I can't change the what ifs of the world. I want to give you all the control back. I want to trust you. The psalmist said it this way: whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. So when Thursday comes around, we remember to surrender our desire for control. David said it this way: my God is my rock in whom I find protection. He is my shield, the power that saves me, and my place of safety. He is my refuge and my Savior who saves me from violence. On Thursday, we practice saying this. Will you say it with me after I say it? You are God and I am not. You are God and I am not. Thursday, you are God and I am not. In fact, we recognize the words from Isaiah when God says, my thoughts are nothing like your thoughts, says the Lord, and my ways are far beyond your ways. Thursdays we surrender. And Friday, the last day, the good day. My name's David Day. I come from a family of 7, so each of us have our own day. Guess which day I am? I'm Friday. It's the fun day. It's the day that we love. And Friday, mythologically, was the day of love. It's Frigg Day, Odin's wife, the goddess of love and marriage. It's Venus, if you speak Spanish, Viernes, Venus, the goddess of love. It's a day that we give love away. It's a day we fight for love. Like, think about it. Every week had a day that was Valentine's Day. So guys, if you thought you had it bad, like once a year, not as bad as 52 times a year. 53 if the calendar lands right. Friday. But love is like such a big ethereal thing. And it's not a day we just wait for love. It's not a day we hope for love. It's a day, man, we go back and we fight for love. We put on love. We live out love as followers of Jesus. We remember the words of the Apostle Paul. He says in Ephesians 5:2, live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. It's a day we make sure that every relationship that God has given us is in check. That if there's brokenness, we fight to heal it. If God's entrusted us with something, we invest into it. It's a day where we say, anywhere that I put my feet, God, everywhere I go, be it school or work or my home or a restaurant or the YMCA or whatever it be, everywhere my feet go, would hate not win? Would I dispense good? Would I give away good? God, would any place that I occupy be filled with love? Would I use my time, my talent, my resources, my treasures to serve others? It's our missions trip minded day. Ever gone on a missions trip? I've gone on tons, and you get prepped, and you're so ready. You do meetings, you earn the money, you pray for the place, you go down there, you travel, you have people pray over you, and by the time you get down there, you expect God to use you to make a difference and make an imprint. Friday, that's our day. On Friday, we live with the courage to live like we wish we lived every other day today. And we don't live it because of Frigg or because of Venus or whatever Cupid is. We live it because Jesus fought for love on a Friday. Because we remember the cross and the crucifixion and the model of love. And we say, God, you are love. I want to live like love. I want to dispense love. I want to point back to that love. I want to be filled with it. And those are the days of the week. Now here's the question. What do you do with it? Super practical. Would you start each day this week by dedicating it to God? Tomorrow, let it be newness. Tuesday, it's the battle. Wednesday, it's wisdom. Here I am, God. Thursday, it's you are God and I am not. Friday, I give away love to each and every person that I see and that I encounter. And if it brings life to your faith, would you do it again and again and again and again and again until you begin to be a person that knows that God is in the work of newness, that he's with you in the battle, that he'll give you the wisdom if you just ask, that he's protecting you already, and that he sent you out on a life and a mission to give away love. So do it this week. The Bible talks 20 times about meditating. Go, but before you do, I have you here. So can we just take this moment before we leave you? Would you do something with me? Would you close your eyes? Yeah, wherever you are, unless you're driving, and please don't. Would you close your eyes? would you clear whatever's in your hands away? Will you take 3 deep breaths with me? Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in the truth of God. Breathe out the anxiety and the lies and the stress. One more time. Breathe in. Breathe out. I just want to read a few verses over you as you sit in this quiet, in this stillness. If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old is gone. The new is come. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. Don't you see it? In fact, I've already begun. I'll make a pathway through the wilderness. I'll create rivers in the dry wasteland. Don't be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. So here's what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life. You're sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my strength, my God in whom I trust. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered Himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Should nothing of our efforts stand, no legacy survive, unless the Lord does raise the house in vain, its builders strive. To you who boast tomorrow's gain, tell me, what is your life? A mist that vanishes at dawn. Oh, glory be to Christ. Oh, glory be to Christ our King. Oh, glory be to Christ. His ruling reign will ever sing. Oh, glory be to Christ. His will